Hello, all you tiny people that live in my computer for whatever reason. My name is Finn, and today, surprise, surprise, I'm talking about superheroes. Specifically, I'm talking about my 5 favorite and 5 least favorite things from the MCU, because it feels like they're slowing down. It feels like they're going to wrap things up with this back-to-back Avengers film. Because as far as I'm aware, it's Doomsday, Spider-Man, and then Secret Wars, and there's not a whole lot between or after, which has made myself and a lot of people think that they're heading towards a bit of a reboot. And since it feels and seems like they're slowing down and they're getting ready for this softcore reboot, that I should, well, not should, but have the opportunity to talk about the things that I really enjoyed and the things that I really didn't enjoy. I'm going to try to be fair in what I say. For example, if I'm talking about a negative, I would like to point out positives that are in it. Where instead of just ranting about how much I hate something, I'm going to talk about the issues I have with it, but then also talk about what I think was done well, the positives that came from it, and then vice versa. The things that I really enjoyed, I'm going to try to be not too much of a glazer and treat it fairly and talk about the negatives alongside it. Because I feel like too many people find things they like and have no negatives to say, and it feels like they don't actually like it that much because they can't think of a negative. And then on the other end, a lot of people talk about stuff they dislike, and it's just, I hate this, and I hate this, and I hate this. And that doesn't... For the filmmakers, for the actors, for the directors, for the writers, for whatever, when you say, oh, I hate this, typically, if you actually want it to be better, you can say, I dislike the way this is done. I wish it was this way, or I wish they did this, or they should do that. But that's not what people on the internet do, especially not comic book fans. Dear Lord, they don't do that. They don't, baby. So, I will give my 5 favorite and 5 least favorite. In depth, I will try to be fair, but it is my opinion. So if I say I really like something that you don't, that's okay, because it's an opinion. And if I say I dislike something that you really love, that doesn't mean that your opinion on that thing is invalid. It just means that it's not for me. So, let's see what I can come up with. If there are periods where stuff looks slightly different, it's probably because I'm going to be pausing a lot, because I don't want to get information wrong, because I hate getting information wrong. So I'm going to start with something I love, and then go to something I hate, and blah, 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 blah. Actually, I think I'm going to do a hate that I love, then a hate that I love. That way it ends on a good note. So one of the things that I really disliked is Hulk. Hulk is great. Great character. There's a lot of really good, impactful, emotional stuff throughout the years, because the character is not just Frankenstein's monster. It's Frankenstein's monster if Frankenstein and the monster were sharing a body. There's a lot of discourse about MCU's Hulk being weak, and that's not the issue. The issue is that Mark Ruffalo, who was a great actor, hasn't been given material that's worthwhile. To clarify, I think Ruffalo is a tremendous actor, and I think if he was given the right script and the right producer, I feel like he could play that double-sided character of Banner and Hulk really well. Not that he plays them poorly, but that he's not given anything of substance to work with. I also think there are some great scenes with Hulk in the MCU. Anything with the sun getting low with him and Natasha is really good. That chase scene in the first Avengers movie where Hulk is chasing her is terrifying. Their midway romance is super I don't know, it feels like one of the realer relationships that's built in the MCU. I'm Always Angry is a tremendous scene. Puny God, blah 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 blah. Personally, I'm very impartial to the scene with him and Scarlet Witch where he's just like, I wouldn't have to change a shade to choke you out, which is fucking gross in a good way. And then I also really like in Ragnarok how both Hulk and Thor, not Hulk and Thor, Hulk and Banner are both insecure about the other. Hulk thinks people don't like him, and Banner thinks people only want him for Hulk, and I think that's super interesting, but they don't do anything with it. The character is not really used as a character. He's used for scaling. Like, him versus Thanos is just to show how strong Thanos is. He beats the fuck out of Hulk. Him beating the shit out of Loki is pretty much just to show that Loki is where he is on, like, the villain scale because of mischief, because of messing with people's brains, because of lying. And there's a lot of that scaling. He scales for Thor, he scales for Loki, he scales for Iron Man, he scales for Hawkeye, like all these people. But they don't ever do anything for him. He's used for building everyone else up without ever building himself. Which is really a lot more of like a kind of a meta commentary on like power scaling a little bit. I hate that stuff. But blah, 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 blah. I also know that they couldn't make a Hulk movie. But they, like, heavily misunderstand and misuse the character. Professor Hulk is super fun. Really heartwarming. But it doesn't feel deserved. In Ragnarok, Banner and Hulk hate each other. They just do. They don't like each other at all. There's no, like, pros and cons. They despise one another. And then, literal days later, they're completely comfortable becoming one person. And the deleted scene of Live and Let Live and all that is stupid. It makes no sense. Because, like, Bruce wanted to kill himself because of Hulk. And then he's just cool being one with Hulk. It doesn't make any sense. I kinda wish that Hulk would have had a film made by the director Kelsey Patwood. She's a director who has her own experiences with bipolar disorder, which isn't exactly the same as DID and whatnot, but it's a similar situation that would give her insight into what the character deals with, allowing her to add some real, like, heartbreaking stuff to that character, and I think that's super interesting. I think that's super cool. I love Hulk. And if you ask me what Hulk story to do, just do Immortal Hulk. Just do Immortal Hulk forever. Because it's great. But blah, 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 blah. Time to talk about something a little more positive. One moment. Now it's time to talk about my fifth favorite thing that the MCU does. And this is kind of a big blanket thing. But the Captain America trilogy is so fucking good. The first film doesn't feel like a superhero movie. A lot of movies where it's like, it's an action film with stupid humor. Haha, superhero movie. It's kind of a war film disguised as a superhero movie, and that's really cool. I like when superhero movies take a genre or an idea and they make a film of that with comic characters rather than making Chris Reeve's Superman 406, which some superhero movies are that, and I don't like those. I think it's a great, like, war film, and then the sequel is a tremendous follow-up. Winter Soldier is probably my favorite standalone MCU film. It's so fucking good. The third film is a tremendous reimagining of Civil War, which is a story I typically don't like, but they made it something beautiful, and they made it something really fun. Alongside, that movie shouldn't have been a Captain America movie. It probably should have been an Avengers film, but it's fine. The characters are super fucking good. The relationships built in that trilogy feel so real. They don't feel like Disney making dumb relationships that don't matter. They feel genuine. They feel like they are really personal things. Sam and Steve have a really great relationship because, like, yes, Steve is technically like 80, but like he's about the same age as Sam, but they're so different because of the like 100 years that they're apart. I think that's really good. The relationship of Steve and Natasha not being romantic is really good stuff. I like them. Bucky and Steve, probably the single best like relationship in the MCU. It's really good shit. I think it is like the peak of superhero films that are based in reality. Heavy quotations on that because, you know, Steve holds a helicopter and like early in Civil War it's like there's some magic stuff and blah 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 and whatever, but like it feels like when superhero films use realism, it kind of makes characters feel out of place. But in this, it doesn't do that too much. Because, yes, Steve has, like, little bits of superpowers and stuff, but for the most part, it's like, in the first film, nobody does except for him. In the second film, it's just him and Buck that do. In the third, everybody does, but I really like that. The big negative I experience in that trilogy is that because of how realistic and scaled down everything is, when Steve goes up against someone like a Thanos, it kind of... because he can have issues with a regular human and then go fight this god, it makes it where everyone else who fights Thanos looks worse. Because, like, Iron Man loses to Captain America in Civil War, and then he's like one of the only people who does anything to Thanos when Cap can't. It's like a scaling thing. It's weird. Or Cap can stop Thanos, but Scarlet Witch can't, and she's way stronger than him. It's small stuff like that that is like the only real negatives of that trilogy for me. Other people may see bigger issues in it. I just don't. And that's okay. Time to talk about another thing that makes me unhappy. So getting into number 4 of the things that I'm not happy about, let's talk about Spider-Boy. I mean Iron Boy. I mean Iron Man Jr. I mean Spider-Man's. So Spider-Man, this little guy, typically is the everyman. He is the regular guy who, by a freak accident, becomes this hero, and then, due to not knowing what to do, he kind of makes himself get to his lows and whatnot with Uncle Ben, and then he grows to be Spider-Man. Now, let's make it where Uncle Ben doesn't matter. Let's make it where his only mentor is Iron Man, and let's not give him villains. I think that's probably the go-to. For me, it's number 4, but for a lot of people, that's like their thing that makes them angry. And I enjoy Tony and Peter's relationship. I think it's a really well put together relationship. I think there's a lot of substance there. I think it's one of the better written things throughout the MCU. And I also really like the impact of Tony's death on Peter moving forward. However, there's some negatives there. I mean, Tom Holland hasn't had his own villain yet. He's been in the MCU since 2016. It has been a decade. He has been in Civil War, Avengers, Spider-Man. He's been in 6 films. Currently recording his 7th and probably 8th if he's in Doomsday, which he may or may not be. And he hasn't had his own villain yet. Not one. Not a single one. His first villain, Vulture, a guy who in the comics is Spider-Man's villain, but in this, he's an Iron Man villain. Second, Mysterio. That's a Spider-Man villain. Oh, his whole thing is hating Tony Stark. Again. Okay, well, his third movie, he can get his... Oh, okay. So, in the third movie, which is good, I like the Spider-Man trilogy, however, he still doesn't get his own villain. He runs into Tobey's villains, he runs into Andrew's villains, he doesn't get his own. He doesn't even get his own relationship with most of them. He gets to develop a relationship with Otto, which is really cool. He gets to develop a relationship with Norman, which is the highlight of that film. But, like, he doesn't really do much with Electro. He doesn't do anything with the Lizard. He barely talks to Sandman. Why is Sandman the way he is? Why is he a villain here? It's supposed to be, like, right before they died, and he doesn't die to Spider-Man, so why is he angry? Because, like, he's cool with Peter 1 when they meet until he sees that he's not Tobey, and then he gets mad. So, but when Tobey shows up, he's still being a villain. It doesn't, listen. So that's, like, the big thing, is, like, he doesn't get to be himself, and then when he finally does, he no longer has an Iron Man. The villain is still Iron Man. We get away from Iron Man villains. Cool. Finally, Spider-Man villains, and they're not his. That movie has a lot of really good stuff. I love the relationship between the Peters. I love Tom's relationship with Norman. I love that he finally realizes everything. He figures out the great power, great responsibility thing. He puts together, like, the thing of, like, you have to cure these people. Like, and the relationship with Norman really shows who this Peter needs to be. He figures out the thing of, like, this guy has issues. He's not evil. He's sick. He is mentally ill, and I need to help and fix that. And that's super impactful, especially for Spider-Man, who's a person who, like, that's kind of the big thing for him, is rehabilitating his villains. Venom, who's probably the most popular, typically it doesn't stay a villain. He becomes a good guy or an anti-hero, depending on the story. But, like, he grows to be a good person, not out of hatred, but out of an area of, like, getting that second chance from Peter and from the symbiote. And I don't know. There's a lot of stuff with Peter not getting to be himself, and I'm really excited. I'm more excited for Brand New Day than I've been for a Spider-Man film since 2014. Like, the last one I was this excited for was Chasm 2. I wasn't that excited for Homecoming, which is a movie I like. I wasn't excited for Far From Home, which is a movie I like. Wasn't excited for No Way Home, a movie I like. But this film, like, genuinely excites me because he gets to be him. And there's, like, all these rumors and blah, 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 blah. Maybe Punisher's there. Great. Punisher and Spider-Man have a great relationship. I would love to see that. John Bernthal, the big scary dude, and tiny little baby-faced Tom Holland, that's a great relationship. Stuff about Hulk being in it. Banner and Peter would have a great relationship. Don't make him his mentor, though. We don't need Iron Man again. Iron Man 2? But I'm excited for that movie. However, God, if they don't make Scorpion the villain, I'll scream. I'll actually, if that movie comes out and Scorpion isn't in, like, the trailer, when the trailer comes out, if Scorpion's not in it, I'm gonna post a video of me screaming, just until my lungs, like, hurt. I love Spider-Man, but the MCU did not allow him to be Spider-Man. What they do with Peter is what I wish they did with Ironheart. Like, that should have been your Iron Man Jr. That should have been your Iron Baby. But instead, that's what they do with Spider-Man, because Iron Man is important, I guess. Speaking of Iron Man, let's talk about my number 4 for things that I adore. So, the MCU has this thing where sometimes, especially modern times, they take a character and they put a popular actor in there. And then that's just what they do. And that's okay, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm going to talk about what they used to do, which is taking an actor and building a career for them through their character. For example, Robert Downey Jr. He had some mess-ups in the 90s, and then he came back, and his first real big deal was Iron Man. He got to build himself up alongside the company, and now he's worth, I don't know, $1 billion. God, they're probably throwing like $100 million at him for like the one movie he's doing. And I love that. And I love that that was built, and I love that Iron Man, a B tier at best, typically C tier character, got the opportunity to not only be the beginning of this big universe, but also to be like the main character. He got to go from being like the fourth, like on the like typical Avengers team, to being the Avenger, to being like the guy. And I love that they got to do that. The negative that I would put alongside that would be, I dislike how much of the MCU is built off of Tony. I dislike Doom being Robert Downey Jr. I dislike Spider-Man not getting his own stories because he's Iron Man 2. I dislike that. We'll get into Ultron. That's a topic we'll talk about in a bit. But like, there's some negatives there. However, it gave a reimagining to a character who hadn't been cool in a long time. And now, he's one of the most popular heroes of all time. Like, he's top 10, maybe top 5. It's like Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, maybe Hulk or Wolverine, and then Iron Man creeped in there. And if you ask people in 2005 who their favorite superhero was, out of like 100, you might find a Iron Man enjoyer. Not that all of his comics are bad, but like he wasn't a big deal. I mean, when the Avengers were put together, originally, it was a bunch of failing comic books put together. That Captain America, because the war was over, it wasn't popular anymore. Iron Man wasn't selling. All these comics that weren't selling got put together, and that's where the Avengers came from. And the idea that the guy on that team that mattered the least, becoming the guy who matters the most, and whatnot, is so fucking cool. And it's something that could only happen in like a connected world. The thing in my head about that is he went from like a C tier hero that no one cared about to being like someone who like there's statues made of. Current comics design Tony to look like Robert. Like, that's incredible, and that's fucking awesome. I like the movies. I like them. Now it's time to move on to number 3 of things that I don't like. God. I don't know what to title this one, but my number 3 on things that I really dislike is they kind of got lost, and I don't know how to explain it super well, but I'm going to give it a crack. Endgame comes out. Also, shouldn't have called it Endgame because it implies an ending, and then here we are 6 years later, and it's still going. But it feels like that film came out, and it closed a lot of doors, and it opened a lot of doors. And the ones it opened, that they just didn't go towards. And I don't really know how to explain it. For example, Cap gives his shield to Sam. Sam, you are the new Captain America. The next step they do with his character is make him give the shield away. And then, when they finally get to him being Captain America and having a Captain America movie, it has now been 6 years since Endgame came out. it took them 6 years to do something that they set up in that movie. And it's not like they built it for 6 years. It's not like Sam was in 5 movies getting ready. No, 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 no. Sam did a TV show where he didn't want to be Captain America, and then he was Captain America. That's it. I like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think that is a really good show. I also really like Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, as Captain America. And people who dislike Captain America being black, you're a fucking idiot. But that's not the only example. They take... What's another good story? Hulk, right? He becomes Professor Hulk, which is... We already talked a little bit earlier about it, but it's really interesting. It's really heartfelt. It's really impactful. He was in She-Hulk, I guess. He is a kid that they don't explain. And they don't imply who the mom is or if there's a storyline going forward. And in that show, they don't treat him well. I like She-Hulk. She's a cool character. The actress who plays her probably won't be back because she gives a fuck about humanity and Disney doesn't like that. But my point being, they set up this super smart Hulk and then they do nothing with him. They still haven't done anything with him. Or his kid that was introduced 4 years ago, or 3 years ago or something. Okay, I guess. What? What's another good example? So Endgame happens, and then they don't really know where to go moving forward, because Phase 1 was like introducing characters. Phase 2 was a lot of build-up, a lot of continuations, a lot of sequels, and then a lot of like team-building stuff. And then you get to Phase 3, which caps off with Infinity War and Endgame, which are tremendous films. I think that run from like Iron Man 1 to Infinity War is really good. If you wanted, like, they could have ended it at Endgame. They shouldn't have, but they could have. But it feels like in a way they didn't know what they wanted to build, what they wanted to make, and that's very evident because Kang shows up 3 years after Endgame, and then Jonathan Majors is a really shitty human being, so they don't end up using him. But like, it took them 3 years to show him, and then from there, 3 years on, they were finally going to do the Kang movie. Also, introducing Kang through Ant-Man is really bad idea because it makes him look like a bitch. Like, oh god, that's like, imagine if they did that with Thanos. Imagine the first Ant-Man movie ended with Thanos beating the shit out of Ant-Man, and then Ant-Man getting away. And that's kind of like a thing they're still dealing with, because you go into Far From Home, which is the first movie after Endgame, the very first one. That's where you need to start building stuff, and they kind of just dismantle a bunch of stuff. They continue the Iron Man Jr. stuff. They do some really fun relationship building between MJ and Peter and Ned and May, and that stuff's great. And then they point towards multiverse stuff, right? They point towards a multiverse with Mysterio, and then it doesn't exist. And then before the next movie comes out, there's a multiverse. I don't know. And then it felt like they were going to build towards multiverse stuff. And they did. Multiverse of Madness came out. It was fun. A lot of fun cameos. Also, Sam Raimi's a great director. And then you move forward again. No Way Home. Multiverse. Fun movie. Good cameos. Good director. But they kind of don't do anything with it. And they're still building a multiverse with, like, the Thunderbolts saw, like, the Fantastic Four ship, and Fantastic Four's in a different universe, and Doom is either from that universe or from a secret third one, but it's not understood. Also, Doom's new. Why is he here? We have no information. He had, like, a 5-second scene with Franklin, a scene with Franklin, and then, like, he's not gonna be on screen until his movie, but they're building him to be like Thanos, but they're not building him at all. And I understand, like, oh, Kang, it can't be done because Jonathan is a shit human and they had to get rid of him and blah, 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 blah. And that's fine. But Thunderbolts is released, Brave New World is released, they've made a TV show, they're recording multiple TV shows. Like, there's been so much time, and we've known about Doom for like a year and a half now, and they haven't done anything with him. So they're, like, not building anything. It's a cinematic universe that's super connected, but it feels like nothing's been connected since, like, 2021. And it feels like that's a big issue. And it feels like not only is it a big issue for the, like, idea of a connected universe, it's also kind of an issue for selling your movies. It's like, yeah, it's all about the multiverse, except for half of the movies don't have the multiverse, and the ones that do aren't actually multiversal. They're just cameos. You guys liked X-Men, right? Look at the bald man. He's cool. You guys like Spider-Man, right? Look at Toby. Ah, his back. Am I right? It's like, it feels like they're jiggling keys in front of a baby. That's what it feels like they're doing. Because they're not actually doing anything creative or fun. They're just handing us stuff. And they're not building shit. And they're also kind of, like, it feels like they don't care in a way. In the way that James Gunn over in DC, right? He's being very careful. He's being very specific about what he does and why he does it. That's why there's so many, like, clips and whatnot of him arguing and conversating with people like David Cornsweet, where it's a thing of, this is why it's in the movie. Well, it feels like I'm doing it this way because of this. I know, and here's why. And it, like, he's super specific. Over at Marvel, it kind of feels like they're not playing it safe. Playing it safe would be doing everything the same way. What they're doing is they're sort of taking the story, and they're not even loosely adapting it. They're taking, like, the big key words and throwing it at you and then not doing it. For example, Secret Invasion. That was a show. The writers didn't read the fucking book. The writers of the Secret Invasion show didn't read the Secret Invasion book and were told not to. Wait. Stuff like that is super, super annoying. Now let's talk about something positive again, because I feel like being positive, something that I really like, that I really enjoy, is how important TV shows are to the franchise. For example, Daredevil, great show, end quote, but, like, you don't have to give him a movie. You could. You very much could. Like, honestly, if you did, people would be happy. But you don't have to. And that's super cool. Because at the beginning, it was like, everybody gets a movie. Ant-Man gets a movie. Spider-Man gets a movie. Iron Man gets a movie. Everybody gets a movie. But now, not everybody needs one, which I think is super good. Because a lot of the movies don't feel like full films. And, for example, Loki. You could have made that a movie. You could have made that 2 hours, and it would have sucked dick. But instead, it's a TV show. A fairly long one for what it's meant to be. And it's a really good one because it's episodic. Because you can pause. Because you can come back later. Because you don't have to watch it in one sitting. And I think that is super cool. And I think more TV shows need to be made. Even if it's that sort of thing of just post it. For example, She-Hulk, good show. People don't like it, but most of them don't like it for stupid reasons. It's a good show. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, great show. Weird choices, good show. The Netflix shows are fun, I don't care. Iron Fist is stupid, yes. The rest of it's awesome, especially Daredevil. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is like MCU adjacent. It's not specifically connected, but like it's like there. Super cool. Marvel Zombies coming out. Seems dope. What If? Super fun. There's so much stuff that isn't a film that you can watch. And that you don't like have to watch. And I like that. I'm a fan. I like that that's a thing. And I like that the DCU is taking that same thing and doing something similar with animated shows and live action shows like Peacemaker and whatnot. Super fun stuff. There is a negative with doing the TV shows so much, because not everyone's going to watch them, which is a thing of like, you're going to lose some money. But hopefully that's not too much of an issue, because like, if I make a film and I put it out there and I advertise it and whatnot, people are going to go watch the movie. If I advertise a TV show, there's a chance that people that want to watch it aren't going to, because it's a TV show, because they have to sit down for such a long time. Because instead of an hour and 50-minute movie that you watch once, it's a TV show that you're going to have to sit down for like 9 hours straight if you want it in one day, or come back next week to see it. Not everyone has the time for that, which is a negative. And the other negative with it is certain characters feel like they are almost misused whenever it comes to putting them straight into like a show. For example, you know, like, I'm trying to think of a really good Fisk, right? Wilson Fisk, Kingpin, super cool villain, probably gonna be in Spider-Man, definitely in Daredevil, blah 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 blah, big deal. There's some people who just aren't going to watch shows, and then whenever he shows up in a movie, people are just going to be like, okay, why is this crowd of 80 people so excited about the bald man? What is he? Why does he matter? And that can be a negative. However, I think overall, the structure of adding TV shows and adding specials and whatnot, like the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, is really good. Once again, James Gunn. Like, I think that is super cool, and I think it allows certain people to work on these franchises and whatnot without being a filmmaker. Not that like a show isn't filmmaking, but like some people aren't super into the idea of directing a film. They would rather do a show, or some actors can't like do certain things for a show or a movie, and it gives you some variety in who you can use. And like showrunners are a thing that are different. Like the writer for a TV show and the writer for a film are not the same thing. They are very similar, but like it's a different technique to writing a film or a movie. And I think that's super cool that so many different people are getting opportunities to work on these characters and these stories and whatnot, and that is awesome. Super duper cool. Yippee. Now, time to get on to another thing that makes me sad and angry. The MCU has a really hard time with adapting things and showing, I don't know what the right term would be. For example, Secret Invasion, right? That came out, and the writers didn't read the book. What? And that happens a considerable amount. For example, Gore the God Butcher, super cool character, super cool concept, really like political commentary behind the character as well, and a lot of stuff about classism, and it's super fucking interesting. The people who made that film made him not interesting, and also wasted a really good actor on him. And this isn't me saying, oh, Love and Thunder is shit, that movie sucks. That's not the entry. The entry here is that the people making these films, making these shows, some of them are really good at it, some of them are really bad at it, but for the most part, you can really tell that some of these people don't care about the material. They don't care about the comics, they don't care about the characters. Some of them really do. Some of them really, really care, and some of them don't give a shit. Like, adapting One More Day which is a notoriously shit story that nobody likes, myself included. It's bad, period. Adapting that in a way that they did for No Way Home, that is so interesting and so impactful and so genuinely gut-wrenching, is awesome. That's so fucking cool. And then there's sometimes, we'll get into entry number 1, but there's sometimes where they do the opposite, where instead of taking a story and adapting it in a fun way or putting a spin on it, they take a story, or they take the characters, and they don't fucking read it. They don't use the stories. God, fuck, we'll get into Ultron. It seems as though the people in charge don't care about comic books. They care about movie, and they care about a superhero movie instead of making something fun and new and fresh and special. When Iron Man came out in 2008, it was super fun and super special and super new. There wasn't stuff like it. Now, we're fucking, God, 140 hours into the MCU, and it's mostly the same thing. There are outliers, right? Like, No Way Home is very different to Iron Man. Captain America is super different to Iron Man. Infinity War and Endgame are super special movies. Deadpool and Wolverine, super different. Eternals, super different. But, like, it became a thing for a while where they were all the same thing. Action and bad humor. That's it. It's like Ragnarok is the like good version of that, where it's like it's good action and it's good humor. But then you have Love and Thunder, which is shit action and shit humor. Or you have Ant-Man 3, which is shit action and shit humor and a shit villain. And it that's not by accident. You don't sit down, like if I give you the comic of, what's a good example? If I give you Batman Ego, right, and I say make a movie out of this, don't copy it, but make something similar. Somebody who gives a fuck about that book and actually read the book is gonna make the Batman. And then the opposite of that, if I come to you and I hand you the what's like the good example of that in the MCU, right? I'm trying to think, because I don't want to do Ultron, because that's a fucking conversation for later. If I come to you and I give you a book and it's Thor and it's about Jane Foster and about how cool she is and it's about her fucking story, and I give it to you and I say, take that, implement it in your movie. If you give a fuck about comics or the character even a little, you're not gonna bring me Love and Thunder. That's not the fucking movie you're gonna bring me. You're gonna bring me a movie that shows how fucking cool Jane Foster is. You're gonna bring me a movie that shows the heart of Jane Foster. You're gonna bring me a movie that shows me that you read the fucking book. Somehow, it feels like not only does it feel like they didn't read the book, right? It feels like they don't know who the fuck they're making a movie about. Because Ant-Man shouldn't be Iron Man, but small. Or Chris Pratt, but small. He should be fucking Hank Pym, a super smart, incredibly, like, faltered, like, fucked up dude. Or, like, Ryan Reynolds has been given a lot of space for his Deadpool films. And that's cool. So, what if they brought Deadpool in, and he made the same jokes as Iron Man, and the same jokes as Star-Lord, and the same jokes as fucking Thor? He wouldn't be cool, and he wouldn't be special, and he wouldn't be fucking Deadpool. Or, I don't know, if they brought... What is the example here? What's like what character? Okay, Sam Wilson, right? Imagine they bring him in as Captain America, which they have. And then instead of making him Sam Wilson's Captain America, they took all of his personality, stripped it down into nothingness, And then they just took Steve. They took Steve's personality, Steve's jokes, Steve's commentaries, Steve's ideals, and then they just gave all of that to Sam. He wouldn't be fucking Sam Wilson. He would just be Steve, but black. It wouldn't be the character. Similarly, oh dear God, I pray they don't do this. If Peter dies, and they bring in Miles, and then instead of Miles Morales being Miles fucking Morales, they take Spider-Man, and they take his humor. Well, they're both Spider-Man. Don't do the thing where Miles isn't Spider-Man. Miles is Spider-Man. They take Peter, right? And they strip his humor. They strip his version of humanity. They strip his brain, and they give it to Miles. That's not Miles Morales. That's Peter Parker, but black. It's not the same character. Or what's an example that doesn't have like the race swap? Because that makes it seem like that's the issue, which it is not. What is the significance here? Okay, Jane Foster, right? They bring in Jane, and they sit her down, and Jane Foster's here, and they take away her heart, and they take away her humanity, and they take away her heartbreak and her trauma, and then what they do is they take Thor, and they take away his humor, and they take away his wit, and they take away his social ineptitude, and they give it to Jane. That's not Jane Foster. That's Thor. But with different long hair, I guess. And that's a thing that they keep doing, because instead of taking the comic, right? Instead of taking Punisher as a comic book, right? They take a Punisher comic and they bring it into the editorial room and they write and they da-da-da-da-da. Instead of taking the Punisher story and making it special and gritty and different and Punisher, they take it and they throw a bunch of jokes into it, and then they make it MCU movie starring Punisher. It's not, they don't care about the book. And I feel like that is a really big issue with comic book films overall, really. Luckily, recently we've had a lot of bangers. Fantastic Four, super good. Thunderbolts, really good. Superman, one of my favorite movies I've ever watched, actually. If I were to make a top 10 superhero films, that would probably be top 5 at this point. That movie's so good. But, like, we've had these bangers recently, and I hope it stays that way. But before that, like, it feels like they aren't reading the books they're making movies about. Like, imagine they make a Percy Jackson movie where they don't use the books. Never mind, they did that. Sorry. What if they make a Harry Potter movie where they don't adapt the books? Oh, they already did that. What if they take a Star Wars movie and they just really shittily adapt one of the... Oh, they already did that. My point, even though I can't find an example that hasn't already happened, they aren't adapting the comics. Like, imagine if Ditko was sitting here and we showed him the most recent Spider-Man movie. He wouldn't be very happy. Or if we showed him, well, I don't think he got to work on Jane Foster Thor, but, like, imagine him and God, put him and Stanley in a room and force them to watch, like, some of their characters. Force Steve Ditko to watch Ant-Man. Force him to watch Ant-Man Quantumania. I bet he would throw up. But it feels like they don't care about the comic book. It feels like they don't care about the history. And it genuinely feels disrespectful to the people who have put their life into these characters. Like, imagine, theoretically, that, like, they do the reboot, right? The Secret Wars happens, they reboot, and they do Ultimate Spider-Man, like the Bendis run, from, like, issue 100 to 160 for Peter's, like, life. And then he dies, right? Imagine they do that, and then Peter doesn't die. Imagine they do that, and there's no symbiote. Imagine they do that, and Peter's like 20. He's not like a tiny little baby. Imagine they do that, and Peter has a buzz cut. And imagine they do that, and whenever Peter doesn't die and he just retires on his own, instead of bringing Miles in, they bring in members of the Clone Saga. They bring in like Kane, and they bring in Ben Reilly. That'd be fun, right? And then tell Bendis, right? Tell Bendis, to his face, we're gonna adapt your story into a fucking great trilogy, and then make that trilogy really shit and force him to like advertise for it. And it's not just him. In general, that feels like a big deal. Like imagine if James Gunn made like a Superman All-Star, right, and like down to the exact like frames, but it was really shit, and then forced Grant Morrison to watch it. They would not be happy. They would not be happy. And it feels very disrespectful and very dismissive of the people who have spent so much, the writers, the editors, the like artists, these people who have spent their entire lives and all of their passion and their heart and their hard work into these characters are now having their stories with the same name put out there and having the world told this is what the story is, and billions of people are seeing it, and it's not what the story means, it's not what the story stands for, and it's not what the character and the arc is meant to be. And I think that's super fucking gross. Genuinely so fucking nasty that is a thing that is occurring at all. Like, imagine George Lucas passes away, right? Somebody else comes away, or people are already in charge. Listen, theoretically, Lucas didn't sell Star Wars, and he was still making the films. And then he passed away, and somebody else came and took over, whatever. And then they took one of his books that he like oversaw and other people wrote and whatever. I don't know Star Wars very, very well, so I can't point to exact examples, but like, say there's a book that's really popular and nerds love it, and then they go to make a movie about it, and they don't fucking do the book. Those fans are going to be very sad. Well, actually, they're Star Wars fans. They'd probably burn a house down or something. But my point being, it's very gross to me. At least I get to talk about something positive here in a second. Yeah, number 2 for the positive. I think my number 2 for the positives is how important they make certain things. And the one that I'm going to be focusing on here is how important they made Thanos, right? Because I'm going to be pulling up some statistics for this one, because I feel like it's very important to point out how big of a deal that is. So, the first Avengers film, right? Thanos shows up and we get like a very quick look at him, right? He's there for a couple seconds. Like, we see him in the throne and stuff. He's not there for that long. And that was the first hint. And then we have Guardians of the Galaxy with hints, and we have Age of Ultron with hints, and we have Ragnarok with hints, and all these things hinting to him. And then when he shows up, he is the biggest fucking deal. He beats the shit out of the two strongest Avengers. He beats the shit out of them on his own, without stones. No stones needed. He has them. He doesn't need them. Hand to hand, beats the shit out of Hulk. Fucking kills Loki with one hand. Beats the shit out of Thor. Blah 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 blah. Super cool. I'm pissed that happened because it made Hulk look like a bitch, but it's badass. And then he gets 2 movies. He doesn't get 1 movie. Other villains get 1 movie and they die. That's what happens, right? Like, Whiplash, dead. Killian, dead. Fucking, technically Red Skull isn't dead, but like, he got 1 movie and he was gone. And then we have Loki. He got he got 2 movies, but I mean, he has 2 movies, but then he becomes a good guy, so it doesn't feel the same. And then Vulture gets 1 movie. Fucking Yellow Jacket gets 1 movie. Ronan the Accuser gets 1 movie. Everybody gets 1 movie. Thanos gets 2 movies. He gets 2 long fucking movies where he is the thing. It's not about his children, like technically it is, but like it's not about like the children of that, like the fucking, what's that group called? The Five Dark Fucks. That sounds racist. They're aliens. Well, that didn't help. They're like, one of them looks like Squidward. Those guys. They aren't the focal point. They show up, they get killed. It's not about his hundreds of thousands of millions of nameless creatures that fight for him. It's not about him versus Thor or him versus Hulk. No. It's him versus everybody, and he wins. He fucking wins in a superhero movie made for children, and he kills everybody. That's awesome. And then in the second movie, he demands your attention. He demands your fear. And that's awesome. And they make him such a fucking big deal. And they build so many big, important moments with him. I'm trying to get some numbers. So, Endgame came out, right? So Infinity War comes out, billions of dollars gets made. Billions of people see the movie, right? Like 1 billion people saw that film, right? Point blank, they just did. There's 1 billion people who have seen Endgame by now. Same with Infinity War. 1 billion people have seen it. That puts Thanos as the guy. When you ask your grandma, right? You ask her about Marvel stuff, unless she already knows some. When you're talking about like a big bad, that's who you're getting the answer of. If I talk to my mom about like superhero stuff, right? Because she took me to see superhero movies all the time. Whenever she like could, I guess. Thank you, Mom. Like, Thanos is the big deal. I remember we left Infinity War and my mom was genuinely pissed off that he won. Like, she was genuinely mad. She doesn't care about those movies. She hasn't, like, seen them all. She likes some of them. Like, she likes the Guardian films. But, like, she's not like a comic book nerd. She doesn't know these characters deeply. But she was genuinely upset that he won. And especially, I think this one was because of me. I got really emotional at Spider-Man dying. Because that's been my character since I was little, and my mother took me to see all of those movies and the amazing films, and I watched, God, that woman, poor lady, she had to hear the Spectacular theme so much when I was growing up. Poor woman. But, like, because of that connection, she, like, was genuinely hurt at his death, mostly because of me, but still. That is, like, a big deal. And the MCU has done that with a couple villains, right? Like, there's probably an extra 100,000 people who know who Ego is, who didn't. Same with, like, Yellow Jacket, or probably Kang by now. But, like, all these people are now a big deal when they used to not be. And Thanos is, like, the perfect example of that. Because, like, comic nerds know who he was, right? Comic nerds know, like, the Infinity Saga, and the Gauntlet, and the Infinity Blade's a thing, and each of the stones do this and this and this, and Thanos is a big deal. He's done this, this, and this, and then you have your, like, people who know that. But for the most part, people, like, up until then, if you, like, were talking to people about, like, who are Marvel's villains, most people would say Doom. I would still say Doom. I think Doom is still the best one. I think it's Doom, then Magneto, and then you get into, like, Spider-Man territory. But Doom and Magneto are the guys. And for years, that was kind of like the thing. The X-Men movies made it where Magneto was a big deal, and then Doom was just kind of on everything. And also MF Doom made Doom a big deal again. You're missed every day, MF Doom. But, like, it made Thanos a huge fucking deal. Like, a humongous fucking deal. It made him so important. And to this day, he still is. I mean, he's been in Fortnite 3 times. He has been in, like, countless video games, sports stuff. always is like alluding to him, like in like I want to say it was late 2018, early 2019, pro wrestler Seth Rollins came out with like an Infinity Gauntlet for a boot, and that's pretty cool. And like you have to get to a certain point to be that level of popular, because like casuals know Iron Man now. They didn't, but they do. They know Spider-Man, they know Wolverine, they know Batman. But like, if I ask like random people on the street who are not comic nerds about supervillains, they're not gonna have a whole lot of answers. It's like Venom, Doom, the Joker, maybe Lex Luthor. Maybe they can get some extras in there. If they name any like Greek god, they would be correct because of Wonder Woman, which is kind of funny. If they were just like Poseidon or Ares, you're right. But like now, Thanos is not only on the list, but he's like up there. Like when it comes to like superhero villains, it's like Venom, Joker, probably straight to Thanos these days. Which is, hopefully Doom gets some. God, I hope Doom's good. I love him. I hope he's good. There's no chance in hell that Amidon's watching this, because I wouldn't watch my friend's content. That should be weird. But like, me and him had a conversation, and I want to say like 2021, where we were on the phone, and I spent like genuinely hours, like 5 hours, just ranting about Doctor Doom, ranting about what I would do if I had like the ability to make a Doom show, the importance of the character, the importance of his race and ethnicity, the importance of his perfectionist issues, the importance of Doom and Reed Richards, and how that's like the thing. It's the thing, haha. But like, Doom doesn't work without the four. Like, you can have a Doom story where he goes up against or with Spider-Man. That happens, and it's great. You can have him work with or against the Avengers. That's great. But if you have a universe that has Doom but no four, it's like it feels like having. It would kind of be like the equivalent of having like Thanos without the Avengers, or having Venom without Spider-Man. I like the Venom movies, but still, it's like there's so much there. So I hope that he gets a big deal. Thanos is a big deal. I wish. Hot take, because people really like this stuff, but like I kind of wish that after Endgame they didn't touch him anymore, because he's in What If like a couple times, and like I think it's really sweet that like the last real thing we got of Chadwick Boseman was him kind of like making Thanos into a good guy. I think that's super cool. So I wouldn't want to change that because of how important it is. That's like his last real thing as Black Panther and whatnot. However, they use him a couple times after Endgame that I don't particularly like. That's neat, that's really interesting, but I think it kind of like undermines the amount of evil that he is and that he was. Similarly, like Vision, Ultron, whatever the fuck you'd call that thing, just cutting him in half. It's like really cool, really hype moment, right? But it makes him look like a bitch, which is kind of sucky after he defeats your whole universe. You know. But I love the way that they built Thanos, and I love the way that they try a few times to build other people up, like Loki, which was really cool, and he got his own TV show, and I like that. Anyways, time to talk about the thing that makes me the most angry about the MCU. Oh dear God. I don't know how long I will be talking about this, but I know, baby, it's gonna make me angry. I'm gonna have to get a drink for this one, actually. I'm not gonna pause it. You guys can watch me go get a drink, because I'm so beautiful. Idols? There's such a cute cat. I'm gonna pet you for a sec. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna need that drink for this one, because this one. I could be talking for a minute. The thing in the MCU that genuinely upsets me the most, like, and I don't mean like, oh, I'm a little upset. I have ranted about this to genuinely like 8 fucking people, and I'd only talked to like 5. Amadin has heard this rant probably 4 different times, once in the past like 2 months. I fucking hate MCU Ultron. His design is awesome. Let me get a picture of the way he looks, because he looks fucking great. The way MCU has Ultron look is the only good thing about him. MCU Ultron is a super fun looking character. Maybe the best like way that they've redesigned anybody for the MCU. I fucking love this character design. Where is a good image of it before I throw up all over the place? I can't find one. This will work. This design is so fucking cool. It is such a good version of the character. Earlier in the film, they have a version of him that's all broken and stuff, and it's great. It's super cool. That's it. That's the only positives. The voice acting is good. Like, the voice of him is really cool, and the visuals of him are really cool. That is it. That is the only positive. Nothing else about this fucking character is good. Everything sucks. The movie was the first MCU film I didn't like. And that was me as a kid. That's not me now, where, like, I'm hyper analytical and I, like, pay attention deeply to every little detail of the movie. No. I disliked that as somebody that liked the first TASM, which is a shit fucking movie. No. I swapped them. TASM 2's a shit movie. I liked it. The TASM 1 suit sucks. That movie, MCU Age of Ultron, is one of the most insane character assassinations in all of, like, comic book media. Because now, right, we're probably never going to get an Ultron in movies that's good. Probably isn't going to happen because directors and writers aren't going to fucking use him because they think people don't want him. But it's not that people don't want Ultron, it's that they don't want that. They don't want that movie. To begin, right, Ultron is a character that is almost perfect with Hank Pym, with Ant-Man. Specifically Hank Pym. It doesn't work with Scott Lang. It doesn't work with only Janet Van Dyne. It has to be Hank Pym. Because that's who he is. Pym makes Ultron. That's the thing. If you know anything about comic books, you already know that. Hank Pym creates Ultron. And then Ultron being a thing is kind of Hank's biggest fuck-up. Hank's biggest mistake that leads to so many lives being lost and leads to him kind of forgetting and losing who he is. It leads to a rift between him and his wife. It leads to a rift between him and all of his friends and his family and all of his loved ones. And it leads to a big issue within, like, him viewing himself no longer as like a good person. He's a flawed individual, as are everybody else. But that's kind of the thing that pushes him to the point of, like, am I actually helping anyone? Am I a good person? Which is super interesting whenever it's a superhero whose entire, like, thing is being, like, that's the whole thing, is, like, helping people. That's the gig. And when you do something that makes you think you don't help anyone, as a superhero, that's, like, the most interesting thing imaginable. That's why Spider-Man, like, giving up the suit is such a big, impactful thing, is because he gets to the point where he doesn't feel he's doing enough good in comparison to the pain he's feeling and has to get past that. With Batman, that's a thing of, like, sometimes the reason he won't kill isn't because of, like, oh, if I kill somebody, I'll just be one of them. No. He's terrified that if he kills one guy, he'll never stop. And that's super interesting. Things that take what a hero wants and what they can be, and it completely breaks that, is super fucking important to superheroes overall. That's why I really wish that Iron Man had a demon in the bottle sort of storyline. And Hank Pym's version of all of that isn't something that's all in his head or something that's all based in him, but it's in creating a super villain. It's in creating something that is so incredibly dangerous that not only can it destroy everything, but in some timelines, Ultron wins. And he wipes out humanity for good. And it's all Hank's fault. And that is super important to Hank as a character. And doing Ultron without Hank is like if you were to take Green Goblin and throw him at Thor, or if you were to do Loki and toss him at the Hulk, or if you took Red Hulk and gave him to Captain America. Doing Ultron without Hank is not only a really weird way of doing the character, but it's also kind of... It feels like they don't care about Ant-Man. It feels like they don't care about Ant-Man, they don't care about Hank, they sure as fuck don't care about continuity, and they really feel like they don't care about Ultron as a villain. Because, like... It's so interesting for a character like Ultron to show up, because you get the thing of, like... I am here to fix the planet. That's my goal, as I am an AI, and my goal is to fix everything. And then he realizes that the only actual thing wrong with the planet is humans, and that they are the issue. Exterminate them and everything will be better. That's super interesting. That's a meta-commentary on the Earth. That's a meta-commentary on pollution and like global warming. It's super intriguing on a political level like that, but it's also super interesting for these superheroes, right? Because Iron Man, Captain America, all these people, they are humans, first and foremost. And the idea of them being told by an AI that, like, you're the issue, humanity is the problem. It's super interesting on that big political, like, world level, but it's also super interesting on that individual level. Hank Pym creates a robot to fix everything, and it's correct. It's, like, point blank. Like, it's right. Without people, there would be no problems. And Hank has to kind of handle the fact that not only is he hearing that and thinking, like, you're right, but I can't let that happen. All of his friends, all of his family, the entire world are hearing the same thing. And it's all because of him. And that's super fucking interesting. And in the MCU, Hank's not there. He's in the universe. He's not in that movie. Ultron also is only there for one movie. What the fuck? So, the first Avengers film, right? It's about Loki. Originally it could have been about Red Skull, but we're not talking about originally. We're talking about what happened. Loki happens. He's in Thor, then he's in Avengers, and then after Avengers he's in the next two Thor movies. He's in the next two Avengers movies. He's not in both of the Avengers movies. He's in one of them. He gets his own show. He shows up here and there in this, and then he's in this and that and that and this. Thanos, the next person in an Avengers movie, he's in the first Avengers. He's in his two movies. He shows up after he succeeds and has these big things happen. Ultron is the only Avengers villain who doesn't have anything like that. He shows up, he gets his ass kicked, and he never shows up again. That's it. He's kind of the bitchy, redheaded stepchild, but in a way that isn't interesting at all. He shows up, he's bland, he kills a bunch of people, drops a city, causes the Civil War stuff, and that's it. He doesn't get any arc, he doesn't get to have any real conversations. The best scene that he has is probably him and Vision at the end of the movie, and, like, that's super interesting. Also, I'll get into something about Vision here in a sec, but, like, Ultron is one of the most intriguing characters in Marvel. He's one of the most intriguing characters in fiction, right? Like, I love the idea of an AI built to fix the planet, seeing humanity and putting two and two together that humans are the problem. That's super fucking cool, super interesting, and can lead to so many stories, but instead, they just immediately throw him out because I don't know why. And then to the Vision thing. The idea of him and Vision being so very similar yet so different is super fucking cool. The idea of like that yin and yang sort of thing, right? Where Vision is super into like fixing the planet in the sense of doing the things that fix it, whereas Ultron is just, if we get rid of people, everything will be better. And those are two very like opposite sides of the spectrum. The way that I would describe how I want that relationship is Magneto and Professor X, right? Both mutants. Professor X wants peace. He wants peace by, like, you're safe in silence. If they don't know you're a mutant, you're safe. You'll be okay. And he's very manipulative in that way, and he forces other people to live that way. And that's why he's such a good character, is because he's doing the wrong thing for the right reason. So is Magneto. Magneto is the opposite. Magneto is, I want peace for my people. And if you're in my way, you're fucking dead. And that's super intriguing, in that the two polar opposite things aiming for the same purpose. It's, we want our people safe. I want our people safe, so I'm going to do X. I want our people safe, so I'm going to do Y. And then that causes disputes. And then with Ultron and Vision, that could be really cool. We both want to fix the planet. That's super cool. I want to fix the planet by fixing all of these small issues and helping the people. Okay, I want to fix the planet by getting rid of the people who make it a bad, like, have issues. That's super interesting, but they don't do that. They give Vision, like, a couple aura scenes, and then they have him kill Ultron. That's it. That's it. He doesn't get... And also, Ultron doesn't do anything. Like, he makes the robots who lift the city and drop it, and he makes the robots that kill Quicksilver, but he doesn't do anything. It's like, the most he does is, like, fist fight Captain America. That's it. Like, he doesn't do anything. Loki does all this stuff with Coulson, and he fucking, like, takes over Hawkeye, and he is related to Thor, and blah 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 blah. Thanos wins and deletes half the fucking universe. And then Ultron technically kills one dude who we didn't really get much time with. Okay. It feels... And the reason that I'm pointing out how some of the stuff is interesting, right, is because if I don't, I feel like I'm just going to be going, MCU Ultron is shit, that movie is shit, the people who wrote that are shit, whoever decided not to involve Hank Pym should get ripped in half in front of their whole family, long ways. Like, I'm so genuinely butthurt to this day that character couldn't do anything. I think it would have been fairly easy to either take a comic about Ultron that people already like and build it up, right? You could have done that for the film. Or you could have taken something like Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the cartoon, and you could take that and you could pick the pieces of it that are important and put it into your movie. It wouldn't be that hard. Or fucking use Hank Pym. Wait, you could have done that. You used him like half a year later, if even. It wasn't that long between Age of Ultron and Ant-Man. You could have done that. But no, we're just gonna make a movie about Ultron without his fucking creator in it, even though we're gonna introduce him in 6 months. Long story short, a character that is super important and super integral to Ultron wasn't in that movie. Ultron, a character who was super important and super integral to the growth of Hank Pym, never meets Hank Pym. Storylines built around Ultron don't fucking show up in this movie. He is the single most wasted thing in the entirety of this, 20-year franchise. We are... God. We have been in the MCU since Incredible Hulk. 17 fucking years ago. And nobody has been wasted the way Ultron was. And that's not what did happen to nobody? Other people had issues. But that was the single biggest misstep in the fucking 29 movies and the 42 TV shows and the 126 hours of film. See, the king is making noise because he's also pissed off. Isn't that right, Bubba? Isn't that right, Bubba? Isn't that right? He's also mad about Ultron. Isn't that right, Bubba? God. Luckily, after I pause and get a drink and calm down, we're not talking about anything I hate. We're talking about something that I adore. The thing, number one, I love the most about the MCU. I'll be right back.
I'm gonna use you as a coping mechanism because I have autism. Yeah. I'm gonna use you to make me feel better because I have issues. And I'm really angry about the comic book movie. Yeah. And you're okay with it because you don't know what any of that means and you just say that I'm frustrated and you're getting me down. Ain't that right, Bubba? Ain't that right, Bubba? Yeah. Beautiful kitty. Beautiful kitty. Meow. 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 Meow.
Be good. Be a good boy. You be a good boy. He's a good boy. The single thing that I love most about the MCU is that it allowed so many people who had never seen these characters or had only known a little bit about them to learn about them, to experience them in ways that are so impactful to them. Because even the things that I don't love, right? Age of Ultron. Some kid out there watched that movie and fell in love with the characters. They fell in love with Captain America or Iron Man or Hulk, or they fell in love with the idea of the Hulkbuster, or they fell in love with the idea of Ultron, and then they went and they looked into that character. They found him in games, they found him in cartoons, they found his books, and that's fucking beautiful. Because maybe they watched the same movie as me, like Winter Soldier, and they thought, that's awesome. Maybe they watched a movie I didn't like Iron Man 3, or Age of Ultron, or Quantumania, and they watched it and they said, that's awesome. I'm gonna look into that. That's fucking awesome. That's so fucking cool. The idea that hundreds of thousands, billions of people, right, being introduced to these characters is so fucking cool. Because, my introduction to those characters aren't the same as everybody's, right? But I think about it like my first experience of Spider-Man was the 2002 Raimi film. I had a VHS of it and a DVD of it, and I broke both of them because I watched them so goddamn much. And then I watched Spectacular and the 90s show and a little bit of the 60s and blah 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 blah. It went on and on. But if the Raimi movies didn't happen, and I didn't watch those movies 1,000 times, and break DVDs, and fuck with TVs, and looking at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday before kindergarten, turn on Spider-Man 2 for the 643,212th time, if those movies didn't come out, there's a chance I wouldn't care about the character, because I probably would have seen... if the Sam Raimi trilogy didn't happen, and they made the amazing movies in 2012 or whatever, I probably would have saw those movies. But I probably wouldn't have had the same connection to the character if I never saw Batman the Animated Series, right? If I never saw that, I probably wouldn't like Batman as much as I do. If I never saw fucking Iron Man Armored Adventures, I probably wouldn't care about. I don't like Iron Man as much as some people, but like I wouldn't care at all if I didn't see that. And that's like kind of for everything, you know? Like, if the MCU didn't exist, so many people wouldn't know these characters, so many people wouldn't care, and so many people who deeply love these characters wouldn't have the versions that they love so much. So even with its faults, even with the expanding issues that I'd have with it and that many other people have with it, and the ones that it is aware of or not aware of or trying to fix, or the reboot or whatever, all of these things that make it what it is, positive, negative, anything in between, without it, none of us would be able to say what we love about it. None of us would have the ability to have a complaint, and none of us would have the opportunity of seeing those characters in the way that they are now. So, even with all the issues I have with it, even fucking Ultron, I love it. And I love superhero movies as a whole. So, if the MCU is over, I'm glad it existed. If it continues, I will happily continue watching. And I'm hopeful for the future of whatever the fuck happens. I love superhero movies. If you watch this far in, tell me what you love or hate about them. Or if you haven't seen it, hopefully I can push you in the direction of that. Hope you guys are having a great day. I love you all. And I will see you the next time I turn on the thing you live inside. I love you guys. Bye-bye.